All right, welcome to the Madison Miller podcast. Second podcast of the evening. This one, friend of the show, hasn't been on in a long time. From Hard Hits, the one and only Derek Brandon Felix. How are you doing on this fine May evening?
I'm doing pretty well. It's been pretty good. Weather's been pretty nice. I can't complain.
Can't complain. Neither can I. All right. I think the biggest story in the NHL right now is the fact that the Seattle Kraken are one win away from a Western Conference Finals matchup featuring the newest two teams in the NHL with them and the Vegas Golden Knights. Could you imagine the Kraken winning Game 7 and playing Vegas? And I think it's going to be a great game tonight. What do you make of tonight's Game 7?
I also think it's going to be a great game. I think it's definitely a fascinating storyline, Madison. Here you have another expansion team, a franchise that started last year. And they did it a little differently than Vegas. They didn't have any, prearranged deals. So they had to build it a little differently. They have some young players also in that lineup, probably Calder winner with Matty Beniers. They also have this other kid that's been scored a couple of goals in that series. And then they have some really good vets on that team too, that have stepped up, like Eberle. Jeremy Kent's been a little banged up, but Adam Larson, former Devils first round pick's been pretty good. And you got an interesting goalie matchup between Grubauer and Ottinger. There's probably going to be a lot more pressure on Ottinger. He's 24, and this is his second playoffs. He's considered one of the better netminders. Hasn't played that well in this series after being pretty good in his first three. So, yeah, there's pressure, and I do think Seattle has a chance.
I do think Seattle's got a real shot tonight. They have a goalie with some experience in Grubauer, although you and I are big fans of Jake Ottinger of Dallas, so I think the goaltending matchup for tonight is going to be interesting. I gave out the under as a pick for tonight's game on the podcast today, and I'm probably going to bet it once we're done recording before the game goes off. And I'm really looking forward to tonight. Who's somebody on the Dallas Stars that you think kind of has to come through? Obviously, Jason Robertson's been...
Robertson, he's pretty much read my mind. I mean, he hasn't scored a goal in the series. He's had a good playoffs, but, he's only got 2 goals. And, that's a guy that obviously... If I had to go with somebody else, I'm going to go with just 2 guys that are a big part of their leadership that helped them get to the Stanley Cup final during the 2020. And that would be Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn. Those are 2 guys that I look at.
Yeah, absolutely. 2 veterans that were on that 2020 finals team back in the bubble. And it's just ironic that they're a win away from a rematch with the Vegas Golden Knights in the conference finals from the bubble. So how ironic is that? The Dallas Stars are a win away to set up a Western Conference Finals rematch with the Vegas Golden Knights from the bubble. And here in the NBA, we have the 4 teams that were in the bubble in the conference finals. So how ironic would be the case if Dallas were to win tonight? And they're like minus 210 favorites tonight, so they are expected to win.
I mean, what I've learned now, all these years, doing this blogging, and it's just getting harder and harder, Madison, to predict the Stanley Cup playoffs. You can't do it. I mean, of course, I liked the Bruins. Who didn't? If we were to take somebody else, we probably would have either took the Maple Leafs, maybe the Rangers, just based on what they had. Although I was a little tentative with that, but I still had them in the conference final. And out west, I thought the Orioles were playing the best hockey. I wasn't sure about the Avalanche without Landeskog. You can't really predict anymore. And I don't know. Does Game 7 on home ice even matter anymore? Okay, it mattered for Rangers Devils, but it's like we saw the Kraken take down the Avalanche in a Game 7, last round. They've got experience doing it already. They've got enough battle-tested guys. They got Jaden Schwartz. He's won Cups. They got Yanni Gord. He's been a big player, obviously, former Lightning player. I mentioned Everly. They have a lot of experience. Grubauer, you mentioned. So I don't know. I don't know what the heck's going to happen.
I really don't know what the heck's going to happen tonight either. We talked about Vegas a little bit earlier. I brought them up. They're in their 4th conference finals in their 6 years of existence. What do you make of the Vegas Golden Knights beating the Oilers?
They were a better team. I wasn't sure about them going into that series, but I just think that they're well coached. So I have to give Bruce Cassidy, who they brought in, and he's kind of getting the last laugh what happened to the Bruins. But look, these things happen. I don't know. They do happen for whatever reason, where teams just have great years and they just can't follow up. Last year was the Panthers, and now the Panthers are right where they should be. Vegas, the reason Vegas is doing so well, I really like that blue line. When you look at it, you got Pietrangelo. He probably deserved to get at least 3 or 4 games for what he did to Draisaitl, and that's on Paros. But he's good. Shea Theodore. How about Haig? Haig's a good defenseman also. Braden McNabb. That whole blue line is really good. And then you have to look at Jack Eichel. Jack Eichel had a terrific series against the Oilers. He was terrific 5-on-5. Had a beautiful setup for her goal. And also the old hat, Riley Smith, Wild Bill Carlson, Marchessault last night. They got all the goals in that game. And I thought they defended extremely well. And that really helped with Aiden Hill, who was come out of nowhere to be the goalie. But they defended well. Aiden Hill had to make 2 really good saves in the third period there. But I thought they really did a good job protecting the house. They were the better 5-on-5 team. And the Orioles relied too much on that power play. And what a shame for them.
Yeah, and speaking of the Oilers, I think that there could be some potential fallout here from losing this series. They were favored to win this series over Vegas, even though Vegas had home ice. I mentioned on my regular show today that I wouldn't be shocked if Jay Woodford got fired. A trade maybe. Do they finally move off of Ryan Nugent-Hopkins? Evander Kane, will he be on the team next year? I think everything's on the table with that team except for those 2 guys. I think, meaning McDavid and Draisaitl, they're keepers, but I think everything else could be on the table for the Oilers. What do you make of their situation going into the offseason?
Oh, man, it's so tough to say. I mean, look, I really liked what both Draisaitl and McDavid had to say last night. McDavid talked about how, this seems to happen to teams before. It's happened, and, hopefully it doesn't happen again. That sometimes you have to lose these kind of series to finally overcome. I mean, it happened to the Lightning. It's happened to other teams. And Draisaitl, he was pretty devastated. He took full responsibility. He did not have a good game last night. It was -4 on for 4 goals against, and was a little bit ineffective. I'm just wondering was that risk bothering him a little bit? I mean, he scored early, had that big, a 4-goal game. He was unbelievable, just like Pavelski, and both teams lost the game. I mean, he got 6 goals in the series, but he wasn't too good the last couple. In terms of that team, I mean, they have a lot of no movement clauses, so obviously I don't think Kane's going anywhere. Hyman had a real good playoffs, scored a big overtime goal against the Kings, which really turned that series around in Game 4. Draisaitl, McDavid obviously not going anywhere. Nugent-Hopkins just came off a 100-plus point year. He also has a no movement clause. If they're going to make changes, Madison, I think it has to do with maybe, how about playing former first-round pick Dylan Holloway? I mean, they basically wasted his rookie year. I mean, they got to get his feet wet. And they have some decisions to make with unrestricted free agents. Bustad was a really good ad. He's a solid player. He contributed, 3 or 4 goals. Janmar, he's a gritty kind of fourth line. Derek Ryan. Derek Ryan was actually pretty noticeable in the first round. I didn't think their secondary lines were too good. Although Warren Fogle did score her goal. And, I mean, but these guys, him, Yamamoto, I think Yamamoto has to have more of a role. They have some decisions to make. They got Klim Kostin, who they picked up, I think, from the Blues. I thought he was an effective player. Ryan McLeod. I'm worried about their blue line. I just don't know if that defense, is good enough. Is good enough right now, and that's definitely an issue. So, especially with Darnell Nurse, Bouchard, those guys are not great even strength players there, but they are really good offensive players. So they need to kind of improve that blue line, maybe try to upgrade their secondary scoring if they can.
Yes, Edmonton to me, blue line scoring for sure. But yeah, to me they're always like a wild card in every offseason, I feel like. Let's go to the East now. The Eastern Conference Finals, I believe, will start on Wednesday. Is that right, Derek?
I'm not even sure.
I don't even know. I don't think the league even announced it, but I haven't seen anything. I'm expecting it to be Wednesday.
I would think that it would be because, that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? And by the way, at least tonight's game, Madison, is at a normal time. It's 7 o'clock local time with the Dallas Stars and with the Kraken, and it's not no 10 o'clock start, and obviously that really backfired. And it doesn't look like they've announced anything. You know what? I just went to the media site, NHLmedia.com, and there's nothing right now slated for. They haven't done anything yet in terms of what's coming up as far as the Eastern Conference Final. But if I had to guess, because this is Game 7 tonight, I would think the Eastern Conference Final would start maybe Wednesday.
Yeah, Wednesday makes the most sense. I think it's a phenomenal series ahead between Carolina and Florida. I just saw a report that Teuvo Teravainen might be coming out for the Canes. That would be great news for them. Gives them more of an umph with their scoring. Florida, who underachieved in the regular season, similar to the Miami Heat, 8 seed technically into the conference finals after winning the President's Trophy a year ago and getting swept by the Lightning last year. So good to see the Panthers really turning it around. And Matt Tkachuk really has made a big difference, and I think he is a deserving Hart Trophy candidate, and I can't wait for the series coming up. What are your thoughts on the Eastern Finals coming up?
I'm actually really excited for that, too. I talked to my brother, Dustin. He thinks it's going to be a really good series. My dad thinks it's going to be a really good series. Everybody I've talked to pretty much agrees. It's a contrast in styles. I think you got two really good coaches there. Brendan Moore is a tremendous coach. What he's been able to do with that Hurricanes team, he's retract Svechnikov, Max Pacioretty, and then they lost Teravainen. And they're just like, they play the same way. They have really good skaters. They play that, strong puck possession game, forechecking, and they get the offense from the blue line. And when you look at the Panthers, Paul Maurice has done an outstanding job. I would question the hire. I wasn't sure he was the right fit for that team. But you know what? They found a way to get in. He made the right choice. He went to Bobrovsky, and Bobrovsky, who gets paid so much money, $10 million cap hit, he's earning it now. He came in, helped them beat the Bruins, although it was really the guys like Carter Verhaeghe. It was Matthew Tkachuk, as you said, and he did not score a goal against the Maple Leafs, but he still had 5 assists. He still was a factor. And you look at Barkov. Barkov hasn't really scored a lot of goals, but he wasn't on for any goals against the Maple Leafs. They were the better 5-on-5 team. I think you got to look at Brandon Montour, what he's been able to do. He really stepped up against the Bruins. He's been outstanding. Gustav Forsling. And how about Mark Stahl? Mark Stahl's playing over 20 minutes a night. He's just playing 5-on-5, not playing any, of course, power play or penalty kill. Doesn't have any points, but I watched the way he battles, and I'm like, wow, this guy really is committed, and he's 36 years old, and everybody ran him out of here, and he looked like he was beaten up. But you know what? He must have worked really hard. You look at guys like that, Sam Bennett, who makes players pay, always taking the body. They're just an impressive team, and the way they defended against the Maple Leafs, that was one of the big reasons why they won. They were the better 5-on-5 team, and I think it's a real intriguing matchup because both teams are pretty good at 5-on-5. So who will win the battle of special teams?
Yes, I think special teams is a big deal in this series. I don't know what my pick is going to be yet. I have to make a pick by tomorrow because I plan on revealing my picks for the two NBA and NHL conference finals is tomorrow, but I don't know who to pick in this series. I think there's a great chance that this series goes 7. What are the odds that you think this goes 7?
There's a real good chance that it can. Just based on the fact these teams are both pretty tough. I mean, these teams are also capable of winning on the road. You know, if you looked at the Florida Panthers, for example, they won 3 out of 4 games against the Boston Bruins, including games 5 and 7. Of course, with that classic in game 7 where they came back and tied it up late, and then they stunned them with Carter Verhaeghe winning. And then what happened in the second round? Oh, that's right. They took all 3 games in Toronto. They're 6-1 on the road. The Hurricanes, you look, they're no strength. They've actually, last year they could have won on the road, as we know. And that was one of the big reasons why they lost to the Rangers. And you know, got dominated in games 3, 4, and 6, and then of course the Rangers went in there and they were able to beat them in that series. But this year they won a couple of games against the Islanders, including game 6. With the shocking OT winner from Paul Stastny. A great play by Derek Stepan. There's a little bit of an ex-Ranger factor when you look at the Hurricanes with Jesper Fast, who got the clincher against the Devils on the power play with the puck going off him. Brady Shea, who actually had a better second round than first round, play a lot more contributing, and Anthony Ranta is still part of the Hurricanes. Then you look at Florida Panthers. They have Mark Stahl. You know, and then you look at the Vegas Golden Knights, and Brett Howden's playing playoff hockey. He's playing better playoff hockey than Artemi Panarin's played recently. And like, what is happening? We've got like 6 former Rangers and represented from these 3 teams. We don't know who the 4th team's going to be. I don't think there's any former Rangers on either side, but it's a little bit crazy. I'm kind of leaning towards the Panthers. Bob Borowski can continue to just stand tall. He looks a lot better right now. Anderson's played well. The Hurricanes do play well in front of him. I think their forecheck might be able to get to the Hurricanes. I think they've got a little more scoring depth. I don't think Matthew Tkachuk's going to not have a goal in this next series. And I'm thinking Barkov will probably play a little bit better. Duclair also is a former Ranger. Wow, I forgot about him too. But
wow.
I'm thinking maybe 6 games. But would I be shocked if it's 7 games? Not at all. Not at all.
But yeah, I was trying to sit here when you mentioned the former Rangers. Isn't somebody on the Kraken? I was trying to think, who did we lend to the Kraken?
Let's see if I actually can't remember. So it's actually 7 former Rangers. Duclair, of course, was packaged for Keith Yandel. Wow. Is there another former Ranger on that team? I mean, they have so many like former players on their roster from other teams, and it doesn't look like it. Like, you know, you got Tanev, McCann. They have Tolvanen, and Tolvanen's been a really good player for them.
Former Predator.
Who?
Tolvanen.
Next Predator.
Tolvanen.
Came up on him.
Colin Blackwell. That's who it was.
Oh my God, that's right. He's not even playing, but you're right. Wow, I wasn't even thinking about that. So you're absolutely right. Obviously, he's not part of the lineup anymore. But this is another reason why it's tough to face the Kraken, is that they're 4 lines deep, and like, it's like, who do you shut down? You know, I heard somebody say that earlier, and it's true. It's like. Gord leads them in points. Then you got Everly, you got Schwartz, you got Schultz, but you have Tolvanen and Beniers, Bjorkstrand. I mean, he had that one big game. I mean, they have like 18 different skaters, I think, Madison, that have scored a goal. That's crazy. That doesn't happen.
You're right, that doesn't happen, and it should be a really fun conference finals in both conferences. With the East, as we talked about, in tonight's Game 7 win, we're going against Vegas. A team that we didn't talk about yet in terms of eliminated teams. We talked about the Oilers bowing out in this round. The Maple Leafs were another one that bowed out in this round. We were just talking about how the Panthers won all 3 road games in Toronto. I think the Maple Leafs should be licking themselves a little bit, thinking they could have won a couple of those games in overtime against the Panthers. I think there's a lot on the table for the Maple Leafs. I think they're more of a unknown this offseason than Edmonton. Austin Matthews, 1 more year left on his contract. Marner, Nylander. I think could be a lot at stake here at the Maple Leafs. Dubas's future is even up in the air. The GM.
Yeah. I listened to Dubas. It came out that he wants to either stay in Toronto, and if he's out, he just doesn't think that he would want to take another job. Maybe he's got a young family to think about. Larry Burke's trying to float that rumor, that him and Keefe would be a package deal to the Penguins and the Rangers would somehow wind up with Mike Sullivan. I'm not seeing that happen. Mike Sullivan, I think, is pretty well liked in Pittsburgh. Obviously, they still have to make a decision. They're interviewing like 10 or 11 candidates for GM, including former Montreal GM Bob Bergevin, and a few other notables, including Peter Chiarelli. I wouldn't touch him.
God.
But, it's so hard to say. Both Austin Matthews, though, Madison, like you said, and William Nylander, their contracts expire next summer. They do have some decisions to make. Are they going to keep Dubas? Are they going to retain Keefe, or do they, as Bruce Boudreau said, Boudreau, of course, has the experience. I watched him on NHL Network with Jackie Redmond and EJ on NHL Now, and he's like, he has the experience where he had success with the Anaheim Ducks for 4 years, and they never won. So they made a change there. Then he was with the Caps, same thing. He had success there, but they didn't win. So they made a change. So he kind of thinks maybe they do have to make a change. They have some decisions with some unrestricteds, including Ryan O'Reilly. I don't know. They don't have a ton of cap space. I'm sure they would love to keep him. They have some other guys like Noah Chari. I thought he was a great addition for them. I feel like, they do probably need to make a trade. They're going to have to make a hard decision. Is it maybe trading a Nylander with 1 year left, or is it a Mitch Marner? But Mitch Marner signed longer term. So it's like, they're not going to be able to get Tavares to waive his no trade. That team. They're such a frustrating team. Morgan Riley was their best player. I think they should roll with Joseph Wallborn. Obviously, it could split time maybe. Samsonov's are restricted. Matt Murray has another year left. They have to make a decision on goalie there, right? Also, Matt Murray, you traded for him, but the guy's always hurt. Joseph Wall looked pretty good. I thought they played decent against the Panthers in that elimination game, like you said, but it's like they're hexed. There's like a Canadian hex. The last time a Canadian team won was the Montreal Canadiens in 1983. I was still in high school. So, I don't know. Maybe it's the Quebec Nordiques curse, like Rob said. I have no idea. But the Maple Leafs do have to look hard and take a good look and try to decide what they want to do as a franchise.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. By the way, 3-0 Yankees, bottom of the first. Quick little update for you. Judge homer and Calhoun homer. So 2 homers for the Yankees, bottom of the first. Just wanted to give you that update really quickly. But the Leafs, it's going to be interesting. And I am very fascinated with their core group. Let's just get our team out of the way. I was going to save the Rangers for last, but I think that the Leafs and the Rangers are at similar spots from a roster standpoint. There's a lot of talk among fans about Panarin for Marner and those 2 teams meeting up in a trade for guys that could use a change of scenery. The Rangers are looking for a head coach. I think we agree on who we want to be the head coach. We'll get to that in a second. But what do you think is on deck for the Rangers as we sit here in mid-May?
Well, they obviously have some pretty tough decisions. to make Madison. Look, there's not a ton of coaching candidates, as we know. I don't want to have a retreat. I don't want a Daryl Sutter. I don't want Peter Laviolette, who's, he's taken teams to the Stanley Cup Finals. He won with the Carolina Hurricanes, and the Hurricanes have a good chance to maybe finally win again 17 years later. But, Laviolette made the finals with the Flyers, where they came back from 3 games to 0 down. They made history doing that. And then they wound up losing to the Blackhawks, and he took the Nashville Predators to the Stanley Cup Finals. But he's been one and done ever since. And they missed the playoffs with the Capitals. I don't know. I mean, if you were the Rangers or Chris Drury, wouldn't you want to interview Andrew Brunette if he's available? He's an assistant, or maybe Jeff Halpern, who we've talked about, whether or not, depending on which assistant the Capitals hire. And of course, the guy that they have in Hartford, who's been successful no matter where he's been, including coaching Connor McDavid. That would be Chris Nelbach. So they have to decide on the coach first, and then they have to decide what they're going to do. And is Panarin movable? I'm not so sure about that. With that no move, that contract, it's going to be very tough.
I do think Panarin's movable. I think there's a chance they trade him, and maybe it's for somebody like one of the Maple Leafs guys, like Marner or Nylander, or somebody of that realm of where, like, this guy can use a change of scenery. I'm with you on Knobloch. He's been amazing everywhere he's gone. Halpern, a lot of people seem to think he's going to potentially be in play for Washington, but what I'm hearing is I think Washington's going to end up hiring someone that used to coach the Hershey Bears, who is now an assistant with the Maple Leafs, Spencer Carberry.
All right. I mean, if that happens, then obviously Halpern could be available, unless I have no idea. But I think Chris Nelbach definitely merits consideration.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's done an excellent job with the Wolfpack. I mean, they squeaked into the playoffs because they finished real strong. Dylan Garand, he's only 20 years old. He played for Team Canada. They won the goal at the juniors, and he played really well. He's played well actually in the playoffs. He didn't have such a great regular season, but it's his first pro year, and they made some additions, and he played real well so far in the playoffs. They are in the third round against those Hershey Bears. Panarin, I would love to get William Nylander. I mean, I would. I like Nylander. I thought out of those guys, Matthews, Marner, Tavares, I thought he was the best out of those 4 guys. I thought he was the most noticeable. I thought he was the most dangerous. I don't think it was a coincidence that he forced overtime. I mean, he scored a couple of goals in that series. Matthews couldn't. I mean, it's unbelievable. He had like 36 shots. I wrote a column yesterday, and he just couldn't score. And Tavares did nothing. Marner, he had, a goal? Nylander is a really good skater. He's a right-handed shot. I would love to get him, but I think we're just going to have to wait it out. We're going to have to wait. Look, the Rangers have some time here. We still got a conference final, still got a Stanley Cup final. They have to just take their time and see how things progress, see what's going on with Hartford, and hopefully, once things clear up, they can interview their candidates and they can make their decision, because they need to have that coach in place by the draft.
Absolutely. Just have it in place by the draft. We talked a little bit about the Whalers. Have you watched any of the series against the Bears? I watched game 1.
I haven't been able to, but I mean, I wish I could. But it's like, I don't know. I got 9,000 things that I do. It's like, I mean, between the writing, I'm always going out for walks. I lost some weight. I try to get outside and take advantage of the nice weather. So, but I'm able to fit into better clothes now. I mean, so obviously there's something good is happening there. But like, hey, I mean, it just goes to show if you're dedicated to something and you take care of yourself, you can do it. But yeah, I'm definitely excited. I'm looking forward to what they're doing there, and Zach Jones, I see, is having a nice playoff. I think the Rangers they might want to retake a look. Whoever they hire as coach, they might want to retake a look at Zach Jones. I know he's not the biggest guy, but he's got the skating. He's got the capability of playing second power play, which they didn't have a second power play really. Trouba shouldn't be on second power play. Miller should be a 5-on-5 penalty kill guy. They have some decisions there with both Miller and Lafreniere. Those are kind of really keys, to what they're going to do with their all season. They don't have, what do they got, like maybe $10 million or whatever they have. Well, hopefully they could bridge those two guys. But retake a look at those guys. Take a look at Zach Jones. Matthew Robinson is another one. I see he hasn't played. Is he hurt? Is that why he's not played? I see that he's not played, but that's an area. I think they do need to get a little more mobility on that blue line, and Zach Jones could probably help.
Yeah, Zach Jones has been a factor with the Wolfpack. And you mentioned a coaching candidate for the Rangers earlier, Andrew Brunette, who is an assistant on Lindy Ruff's staff. Their team was just eliminated. Let's get into the Devils now as we're talking about Andrew Brunette here. Do you think Lindy Ruff's back with New Jersey and maybe they potentially look at Andrew Brunette if they do not extend Lindy? I think the Devils had a fantastic year. What do you make of their situation going forward?
Well, according to Elliot Friedman, Rob Davis, of course, linked up something in the chat. Ruff will be back, originally heard. But now the word is the desire is to work toward it and to have Ruff return as the coach. So the working goal is to have Lindy back, and I think Lindy deserves to be back. So I would think they want to bring him back for, I don't know how long, he wants to do it for, but he was outstanding. He did a great job with the adjustments. He definitely outcoached Gallant. Gallant is a likable guy. It's a shame, how things turned out there. But in terms of Lindy, hey, they got Lindy from our staff, right, as an assistant.
Yep.
And why can't we take from them as well? It's just, I guess turnabout's fair play. But no, I think Brunette is a really good mind. Certainly when it comes to the offense. I think Devils power play could have been a little better, though, I do think, and I think he was in charge of that. But he did coach the Florida Panthers after the Joel Quenneville disaster or debacle. In terms of the Devils, yeah, I do hope they get it done with Lindy. Lindy deserves to stay there, and it's certainly interesting. I think the most interesting for them, they have those decisions both on Jesper Bratt, who didn't have a good playoffs at all, and Timo Meier. They're both restricted free agents. They have over $34 billion of cap space, so they can bring back both, as my blogger Hassan said. If you want his thoughts on the Devils, you can check it out at NewYorkPuck.com, The Battle of Hudson, and you can read his thoughts. But they can definitely bring back both guys. And they could go a little younger on their blue line with Luke Hughes, who played real well with John Marino in that last game, playing over 25 minutes. And maybe they could spread out those young players. Maybe have Kevin Ball play on the third pair or on the first pair. And Simon Nemec also, who they drafted, last year. Or was it 2021? His first pro year, he had a pretty successful pro year. So they could get younger, and maybe Ryan Griezmann ends up leaving. So they do have some decisions there to make.
Absolutely. But yeah, really interesting playoffs thus far. One last thing before we go. We talked about a little bit, in chatting with the Connor Bedard Blackhawks draft. Do you think the draft is good outside of Bedard, or do you think Bedard's going to be the only guy coming from this draft from what you know?
You know what? This is a real good draft, actually. Yes, Bedard is going to be a super duper star, and lucky for the Blackhawks, who get another Patrick Kane kind of player. Except this guy's probably going to be a bigger goal scorer. He definitely has that. Going to the Blackhawks, he should definitely if he's getting that first line time, getting first power play. I think he could definitely score 40 goals in his first year there. I'm curious to see, they have a lot of parts that they have to rebuild there. They're kind of in bad shape. So I want to see what they surround him with. Certainly, they traded away Max Domi. Max Domi's been a real good player in the playoffs for Dallas Stars. He was a guy that I wanted for the Rangers. And they just didn't do it. They went for Patrick Kane. They went for that. It didn't work. But I want to mention like a couple of players, Madison, for this draft. A couple of guys that I definitely think are guys that you have to look at. One is Fantilli. Fantilli had a terrific freshman year and won the Hobey Baker as a freshman. Adam Fantilli. He played for Canada. He looks like a power forward. He's got power forward potential, real good skater, had a outstanding season, got a gold medal. He is a guy, 6'2", he's got the size, he's got the instincts. He's going to probably go number 2 overall. He's definitely a guy to keep an eye on. And then there are 2 other guys. One is Leo Carlson. Leo Carlson he's a center. He is a very good player. Two-way kind of center. A guy that played for Sweden. Might go ahead of Matvei Michkov because Michkov he's still under contract in the KHL. Michkov is smaller, but he could be a really good scorer. So whoever selects him, if he does drop to maybe 4 or 5 or 6, the team who selects him, he could come over. He'll be ready by 2026. Like Kaprizov. Kaprizov is much bigger, but if you're willing to wait, you're going to have a pretty NHL-ready player, a guy who can score goals. So those are 4 guys to look at, certainly. That's probably your top 4.
Alrighty, Derek. I wish we could have more time, but
Me too.
I have a lot of other things to do. I'll probably have you on hopefully next month so we get more into like some other sports and whatnot. It was an absolute pleasure to have you on tonight.
It is always fun to come on your podcast, and I'm glad that you give me the chance to talk and talk hockey. Obviously, I wish that it could have had a better ending for the Knicks, but I think we both knew deep down our hearts, like you said, you picked Miami in 6, and I could tell just from that first game how important that was. And I guess you can't talk enough about experience, and they had it.
Absolutely. The Knicks did not have the experience that Miami had. I talked about that with James when I had him on before you, and I said the same thing, that I picked Miami in 6. But yeah, Knicks, I think, are headed in the right direction. Yankees seem to be turning it around a little bit. Just need to get some pitchers back, and hopefully
Get some pitchers back.
Get some pitchers back. Garrett Cole's pitching well, and hopefully things look good in the summertime.
Well, I just want to say thank you again for having me. It is always a blast. I know how hard you work on this and everything else, and I wish you all the best, and we'll be catching up, all right?
Yep. Good talking to you, my friend.
Enjoy.